Thanks for listening to this Voice of San Diego podcast bonus episode. I'm Andrew Keatts, the associate editor here at Voice of San Diego. The election is drawing near, so we've got a lot for you here in the Voice of San Diego podcast feed. This is the second of 2 episodes dedicated to the county supervisor's race. That's the district that covers the big chunk of eastern San Diego County, currently held by Supervisor Dianne Jacob, who is terming out later this year. So this is my interview with Kenya Taylor, a Democrat. This is her first time running for elected office, and she is a marriage and family therapist. Also running for D2 is Joel Anderson, a Republican, and his interview with Scott Lewis should also be in your feed right now. Here's my chat with Kenya Taylor. Thank you for coming in. So, a lot to discuss about your race, a lot to discuss with what's going on at the county right now. But let's get to know you a little bit first. So, you are a family and marriage counselor?
Yes, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in the East County, graduated from Valhalla High School.
So, where did you grow up?
Rancho San Diego.
Rancho San Diego?
Right around Valhalla High School. I'm still out that way after all these years. Been out there since the 80s. Very familiar with the area. Went to San Diego State University.
Do you count Rancho San Diego as East County? Where is East County to you?
East County.
Is it basically the supervisor district? Where would you set the boundaries of East County?
I'd say maybe
like
east of the 125.
Yeah, is Poway East County?
Oh.
Or is Poway North County?
Poway's in District 2. I'll say that. Poway's in District 2.
All right.
But it's in our supervisorial District 2 area, and as you know, it is 2,000 square miles.
Yes.
And so it's the largest in the county.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also very unique because we have urban, rural, and suburban communities all mixed in one. And I live in Rancho San Diego, which is the unincorporated part of El Cajon.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have a mayor or city council.
Mm-hmm.
And so Poway's just down the street from Ramona, for example, which is another place that doesn't have a mayor or city council. And so we have unique needs in our communities, but it's important for us to also know that our supervisors should have a diverse plan because of the different types of communities that we have.
Yeah, so that makes it's an interesting thing because in those unincorporated areas, the supervisor is in some ways like a mayor for those areas.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And it's Nathan Fletcher's supervisorial district, for instance, doesn't have that relationship with the county government, really, not in the same way that your district does.
Right. We have just the largest unincorporated population.
Yeah.
The area.
Yeah.
And so it's very important to make sure that we have somebody who has hands-on experience dealing with the fires, for example. Back.
So we'll get to the fires in a second. That's certainly a big topic.
Sure.
So you went to Valhalla High School?
Yes, I was an honor student. I won one election out there. I was treasurer of student government, but it's very similar to this.
That was your first run for office?
It was, and I won. But it's very important to understand whoever's in the position for supervisor must care about people, but also understand the unique needs of the community.
Mm-hmm. What'd you do after high school?
Well, I started off at Howard University in D.C. I graduated with a degree in sociology from San Diego State, and I have my master's in counseling, specializing, at the time they called it marriage, family child counseling. Now they call it marriage family therapy. Okay. So I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, and most of my work has been in the East County.
Interesting.
And the rural communities, actually.
Yeah. And so what walk me through your decision to run for office generally and to run for this office specifically?
Specifically, having my background in the largest portion of the county's budget, which is Health and Human Services, I looked at, number one, what the county supervisors do, how funding was allocated, and the way a lot of times the media talks about the supervisor position, they talk a lot about land use. Well, land use is only 10% of the budget. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times people would think land use was the bulk of the budget. It's only 10%. Mm-hmm. That's land use and environmental issues combined. But Health and Human Services has 36% of the budget, more than a third. And it's my background. I have experience working with child welfare issues, Family Resource Center, which some people know as the welfare office. Also being a mental health provider, a licensed mental health provider, working with older adults. I have a geriatric mental health background, working with our veterans, working with public health crisis. I addressed the Hep A crisis. I was hired in our library system. Public health.
What was your role in the hepatitis A crisis?
I was hired by the Southern California Library Consortium to be a part of the efforts in our Chula Vista libraries. And I worked as a mental health worker to figure out solutions to help support the staff, but also find resources for the library patrons, as they call them, when the Hep A crisis happened. Sometimes at 10 o'clock in the morning when the library's open, we may have had patrons come in who were homeless. But everybody deserves dignity and respect. You know, sometimes we had people taking bird baths in the bathrooms. It's no secret. It was discussed a lot. I worked with the homeless outreach team. We had some wonderful officers that are there in Chula Vista and the PERT clinician. And one of the reasons I am running for this position was in 20 years, the first time I worked with the psychiatric emergency response team was only with the homeless outreach team. I've never had PERT available for me in 20 years. That makes no sense.
So let me ask you then.
Sure.
The hepatitis A crisis, the county has taken a fair bit of criticism for its response or lack of response to that crisis and how it played out. Generally speaking, how would you, as somebody who was working in the field at the time that was going on, how would you assess how well the county reacted to that, and has the sort of narrative that's emerged since then, in your estimation, been accurate?
Well, first I have to say I'm not a physician. I'm not a epidemiologist. I'm a therapist. I'm a mental health provider. So it is important for me to talk to the subject matter experts and make sure I have the best available information. But I also know it's important to build on prevention and early interventions. I've been doing that in our rural communities, and actually I built a program leading to the County Program of the Year in our rural communities. We need prevention. A lot of times our county has waited too long to try to intervene. Just knowing firsthand that even if a person has a physical health issue, a mental health issue, if you're feeling okay, it's very often you won't be seen or you'll be turned away. But when there's a major crisis, when things get extremely bad, the county has then provided services. But with prevention and early interventions, it saves money, it saves time, and it helps to improve the quality of our lives much faster. And so with the Hep A crisis, I think it was a unique experience. I'm looking at going forward in the future. We need to figure out best practices. Right now, I know with the coronavirus that's out there now, they are doing more prevention. And so I was pleased to see that. So there are steps being made, and I appreciate that.
So the hepatitis A crisis was also, it created a new conversation around how well or how not well the city and county were working together to address the homelessness crisis in general. The hepatitis A crisis, I would say, became a flashpoint for that, and that conversation has carried on since then. And, you know, I spoke to Councilwoman Monica Montgomery just yesterday, and she said that it is her opinion that the city has not always had a willing partner from the county in some of the wraparound services that need to go along with dealing with homelessness. Once you provide shelter or a permanent supportive housing unit, that the wraparound services are often the purview of the county, and that maybe the willingness from the county to partner on those efforts hasn't quite been there. Would you agree with that? That the county has, in your view, not been as eager until recently to step in and play a role in these things?
It depends. Because again, the work that I had been doing right after the Cedar fire, working in primary care, working in the schools, I've been working with multidisciplinary cross-functional teams. We were doing that in our rural communities. Again, we were the program of the year for the county. We created the best practice for the entire county, not just District 2, because we were in Ramona, Julian, Campo, even Palma, which is not in District 2. But I've also worked in the back country, and we've been doing it. But everyone doesn't know how to do it. I have a background working in the schools. Everyone doesn't have that background. I have a certification in primary care behavioral health. Most people have never heard of it, or they don't even know what it is.
Yeah, so lay that out for our listeners. Behavioral health, in your opinion, what's the definition of that?
Behavioral health incorporates physical health, mental health, and wellness put together.
Yeah.
Every person is a unique individual. And so it's important to figure out what the client, the patient, the community member needs are, and make sure we have resources addressing their concerns, whether it's schools, whether it's their faith-based community, whether it's just ways to manage asthma. Our veterans might need to go to the VA, but if they're 80 years old and they don't like leaving Campo and going to the VA, we need more interventions. And so with the prevention and early intervention dollars, where we had an opportunity to use, sponsored by the county, or funded by the county, I should say, it gave us flexibility because everyone is different. There are unique needs, and it didn't lock us into specific needs that we hit roadblocks. We had flexibility. I agree with Council Member Montgomery, and I'm also honored to have her be supportive of our campaign.
Right.
She was there at my kickoff in Santee in May. And so when we have resources such as housing navigators, as somebody who's worked, developed, built programs, I don't understand why we've had so many housing navigator opportunities when we didn't have a place to refer them to.
Right.
The housing navigators, which I appreciate people having job opportunities because economic solutions and expanding the middle class is a priority for us. But if we're constantly lacking housing, we need to do something different. We need housing first. I would love for District 2 to be a new tiny home community. Let's have a pilot project. But going back to behavioral health, finances are a huge issue. When you have someone sitting in front of you saying, I'm 55 years old, I had an injury, I'm re-entering the workforce, I need to have a new job, trade, or profession, we start there.
So you mentioned Housing First there, that has more at the city level really has become something that suddenly is in dispute in in a couple different races this cycle. Sounds like you have a pretty clear view of that. What do you, as somebody who works in behavioral health, which is often juxtaposed as the alternative to Housing First, or at least in the telling of Councilwoman Barbara Bree in her mayoral campaign, she says, I don't believe in housing only, I believe in treating root causes. You seem to be saying that that dichotomy doesn't quite strike the right balance.
That's not what I said.
Okay.
The reason is because you have to ask the person what they need. Everybody's different. You could have 3 people who live in a home and they tell you they need 3 different things.
Yeah.
And so using something I learned at UCSD in the early 2000s, motivational interviewing, asking people what they need, how they'd like to get there, and building on their dignity and respect, providing opportunity for vocational support, training. It's important to have short-term solutions for housing, long-term solutions for housing. Where I'm concerned is that each year, if the county spends billions of dollars, each of these cities are spending billions of dollars, and homelessness is at the worst that I've ever seen it in my lifetime, nothing's being done.
Yeah.
This is the first time I've seen rows of tents on sidewalks. Whether it's Barbara, Todd, Tasha, whomever, who's a candidate, and they all have unique thoughts, we need to make sure we have multiple plans, because there's one issue if you're about to lose your house. Sometimes you just might be one check away from losing it. We need early intervention there. That's a lot different than the person who's been living on the streets for 3 years.
It's a lot cheaper as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what the county's been doing is saying, well, if you're not severe enough, they weren't helping you. When I was working with the homeless outreach team with the Hep A crisis, there was something when I left the rural communities, I was working as an independent contractor, there was something called a VSPDAT, this vulnerability index screen. Okay. You had to be very severe in order for them to help you. So they would bump you up on the list. It's ludicrous. We need something for different places and spaces that people are in their life, not just waiting for people to be chronic and then you decide to help them.
Yeah. And so would you had said that you subscribe to the housing first mentality. You're saying basically that this is compatible with housing first.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So KPBS had an interesting story a couple weeks ago about the sort of suburbanization of some of the more acute and visible signs of the homelessness crisis in Spring Valley, in Lamar Park, that had popped up a sort of tent city, similar to what you might see in downtown. And it was out in Spring Valley where, we don't typically see that sort of concentration of visible public homelessness. How much have you seen that sort of expansion of public visibility and around homelessness coming into District 2?
Some of it's been there for years.
Yeah.
In different locations, you hear about people living in riverbeds.
Yeah. Canyons.
Well, in some places they call it riverbeds, depending on what part of the area it is. And the first thing is acknowledging the problem exists. For all too long, there were too many people that said, not in our backyard, it doesn't exist. People can't deny it anymore.
Yeah.
I don't understand why we aren't utilizing our vacant buildings and utilizing them to house people.
It seems like it's a unique problem to some extent in East County, only because as bad as that is downtown, and it is quite bad, there are a lot of service providers within just a few blocks when you're downtown, right? There's you could reasonably, if somebody wanted it, offer them a shelter bed at Father Joe's or one of the temporary semi-permanent shelters that have popped up around downtown from somebody who's on the streets. That sort of immediate offering of services or a place to go in Spring Valley might not be quite as available. Is that fair?
Transportation is lacking.
Yeah.
It's harder in our rural or unincorporated areas. Spring Valley, there are some areas by Lamar. You're close to Bancroft, right by the 94 freeway.
Yeah.
Obviously, but it is a little bit different than downtown where you go on a corner and there's a bus passing, for example. But again, if you don't have access to a bus pass, if you don't have an address, what do you do?
Right.
It's hard to even have a resource. Now, I'm not one to say we need to give everything away for free. I'm not saying that at all. But at the same time, it's time for us to use our money wisely. It's time for us to have programs to help people get back on their feet so they could be independent. A lot of people are asking for help, but and when I say we, as a county, for me, we're all in this together. If one of us fail, we all fail. And so if one of us win, we all win. We need to make sure that we have things in place so people can be successful. The issue of substance abuse sometimes comes up when we talk about homelessness. Everyone there is not on drugs. They're not.
Yeah.
There are some people who are. But again, if people are trying to ask for help, we keep telling them, no, you're not severe enough. For some people, they do decide to use later, but initially they didn't. And so we need to make sure we have opportunities. In 2017, we had the SROs down here. Then they went away. We need short-term occupancy opportunities. Everyone's not going in a shelter, though.
So Measure A is on the ballot this.
It is.
It shares the ballot with you in March. What is your opinion on Measure A?
Yes on A.
Yes on A?
Yes on A.
Are you at all conflicted around that? Or is that was that an easy decision for you to make?
It made sense, but it's sad that it takes a measure to talk about this. We've invested millions and millions of dollars in a general plan.
Mm-hmm.
For me, safety is the number one priority for us. That's one of the main reasons I'm running. I live in the unincorporated area. I want to make sure I'm a champion for all of us. We don't want to be the next Paradise, California.
Mm-hmm.
For years, people talked about the importance of environmental issues. And now all of a sudden, it seems like people don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I thought the county was trying to put more developments by jobs and transit.
Mm-hmm.
If I were to use public transportation to come over here, it would take almost 2 hours. That's not good. But safety is the issue for me, a big issue. When there's another fire, there will be more fires. We have wind gusts that we didn't have that are 75 miles per hour now. The fire moves with wind.
Mm-hmm.
There's not expansion of the roads. When we need to get out, there's gridlock.
Mm-hmm.
We saw what happened in Houston. They expanded the roads. There was more traffic. 26 lanes of traffic. It doesn't solve things.
Now, what do you make of the No on A's campaign's contention that this won't kill the demand for suburban living, single-family home communities, and in search of low-cost housing that suits people's needs, rather than look towards infill opportunities? People will just move to Riverside, and so the sprawl and commute patterns will simply be exacerbated than they would be if you provide, essentially closer to home sprawl.
Well, one of the interesting things about this whole topic, and I believe it was Voice of San Diego that talked about, was it about 160,000 units needed or places?
Yes.
Where's all the building? Yeah. There hasn't been anything done anyway, right?
Very little.
Yes. And that's a problem in itself.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you make of that? Because the county's general plan, as you say, it spent many millions of dollars, 10 years of time, was adopted. I think one of our reporters was looking at county records recently, and of the new units that were cleared under the plan, it's only been like 5,000, 6,000 total units built.
Right.
Why is that? Why hasn't the general plan led to any sort of increased development or any substantial increased development in the areas that it chose to concentrate development?
Well, this is one of the reasons I'm running. We need innovation.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't had that. We've been doing business as usual, and we haven't had a lot of results.
Mm-hmm.
We need homes. We need them now. But at the same time, when we build, we need to be safe about building things. Mm-hmm. Areas like Spring Valley, Fallbrook, Lakeside, those are opportunities to build. The general plan was created. They spent millions of dollars. Mm-hmm. Millions. We could have housed so many people with that money.
Mm-hmm. There's
constantly study after study and more studies and paying consultants. And I've been a consultant. I've been a contractor. I understand those great opportunities we used to have. However, nothing is done. Mm-hmm. I mean, we don't have the homes. Yeah. And so what I really want to focus on is going forward. Having opportunities to house our veterans, having opportunities to house our seniors, having opportunities so when that student from UCSD, San Diego State, Point Loma Nazarene graduate, they have high-paying jobs and have career opportunities here in San Diego. They could purchase a home and they don't have to go to Arizona or Texas or somewhere else because we don't have housing. We need housing for low income. It's time for us to expand the middle class. Mm-hmm. And that's fine if people want to have their luxury units. We need something for everybody. So that's why I'm saying let us have tiny homes. We have opportunities to have accessory dwelling units, those granny flat style opportunities, whether it's 600 square feet to 1,200 square feet. We can start building those now. Infill is so easy to do. Also having the vacant buildings, not just in District 2, but all over the county, seeing if we could have multi-use opportunities. The bottom line is we need to do something. And a lot of our electeds, while they're there and meeting, we still don't have housing. We should at least have 20,000 units, and that's a real low number.
So if A were to pass, as you hope that it does, would you, what would you try to do to try to get the reins pulled back and get some, or excuse me, the other way around, and actually ease up on housing constraints and get some of the housing that's technically approved in the general plan, but for one reason or another hasn't been proposed, hasn't been built? How would you try to get that process moving after A gets passed?
One of the first things is to figure out where we could build now or modify. We need units now. Let's look at those vacant buildings. Driving down here, seeing so many vacant buildings, it's ridiculous. We need to start there because we need short-term solutions, but also long-term. We need to make sure that when we have opportunities to have multi-purpose use buildings, we could do that. I've seen some of that in some of our districts already. We need to make sure we have, I mentioned this when you invited me to the panel at VOSD. I want to see those emerging developers at the table who have new ideas. Some people are saying, well, they don't want to build low-income, affordable housing. If those that are emerging and they're interested in doing that, I want to spread the wealth. I want to expand the middle class. We need more millionaires in the area. We need people who want to build and build for people of all levels. And we need to stop talking about it and have somebody do it. We can't keep talking about things and we don't have results.
Does the county need to play a more direct role as a developer of its own? It owns a lot of property, some of which may be underutilized. Would you generally be in favor of the county taking a more forceful role in putting its own properties out for requests for proposals from affordable developers, putting some money into more low-income development, that sort of thing?
Our county needs to work for us. So yes, absolutely. If we have access, why aren't we doing that? We should have been doing it already. It's really a slap in the face that we haven't been doing it. We need to grow. We need to make sure that we have opportunities, but also we need to create more economic solutions and opportunities for people. And we need to train people how to build. We need those pipelines, not to prison, but to careers. It's important for us to get that going now so we could house people. That's a great way to start building up versus out. Stopping the sprawl development is to look at those buildings and see where can we have new homes.
So I want to ask you briefly before we go about your race, about the campaign.
Okay.
So Dianne Jacob has been in this seat for a very long time, for decades now. She is termed out, so it is an open seat for the first time in quite a while.
Yes.
And it is still regarded, generally speaking, as a conservative district. You are a Democrat. I
am.
You have an impressive list of endorsements from Democratic and left-leaning organizations, unions. How do you feel about the race and going into a relatively conservative district as a relatively not conservative person?
When it comes to homelessness, housing, our libraries, our parks, protecting our pets, agriculture. A lot of people, most people don't care about what party you're from. They want to know, are you going to make sure they're safe? Are you going to make sure there's jobs out there? And so, although I've been a Democrat my entire life.
Yeah.
That has never gotten in the way of me working in our rural communities, not only building but sustaining relationships, even being part of our East County regional leadership team. Mm-hmm. I'm out there, I'm working with people of diverse backgrounds. I challenge everybody to just go to the registrar of voters and look at past elections. There's a lot of Democrats out in the East County. When you look at La Mesa, Spring Valley, Lemon Grove, even parts of Santee, Del Cerro, San Carlos, El Cajon, yes. And then you start looking at all the MPP voters.
Yeah.
People haven't been honest with the public. Those numbers are there. There hasn't been as much outreach as we deserve, but I think the bottom line is it's time to make sure no part of District 2 is left out anymore. The East County matters. Rather, I'm talking with Sandag, our electeds, those who have endorsed me. I've told everybody we can't be forgotten about, especially now that things are at its worst. I don't want to be the next Flint, Michigan. I don't want us to be the next Paradise, California. It's important to have somebody who's willing to stand up to make sure we're fighting for that disabled veteran. I mean, I don't understand why we don't have programs for our wounded combat veterans. This is San Diego. We should be supporting people, not forgetting people, not ignoring. And so people have told me they're excited about the run. They know I'm a Democrat, but they know they could trust me. I've been a part of, like I said, the bulk of the budget, not just Health and Human Services. I started working in our rural communities right after the Cedar fires. Some people had everything destroyed, but the clothes that were on their back. I've built relationships, but most importantly, I sustain them. I also have programs for success. I call them Solution for Success, actually. But they worked. We did that on a limited budget. I can't imagine what I could do, what we could do as we walk together in District 2 to make sure that we have opportunities for greater success. Because right now, we can't do business as usual. We saw what the homeless situation looks like now. Mm-hmm. It's not better, it's worse. And if we want a different result, we have to do something else. People have heard the saying, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting to get a different result. We cannot continue to do that. We need to make sure we have quality child care. And the voters of District 2 are saying, Kenya, I believe in you. We need something different. Not to mention, we have so much negativity out there. We have so much discrimination. We have 100 years of a woman's right to vote this year, but yet women are still talking about equal pay. We're talking about the same thing year after year after year. We deserve to have a San Diego County where everybody lives well. That's the theme of the county. So I'm not trying to leave anybody behind, but we definitely need people working hard, but we need solutions for success and not just filling the pockets of a lot of money of a select few. Yeah. We need everybody to get working, to work hard, and to have an opportunity to thrive.
Kenya Taylor, candidate for District 2 Board of Supervisors.
Yes.
Good luck in 10 days from now, I think.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to this Voice of San Diego podcast bonus episode. You can keep up with all of our political coverage with the Politics Report newsletter. Get that at vosd.org/newsletters. I'm Andrew Keatts, Associate Editor. This show is produced by Nate John, Megan Wood, and Adriana Haldiz. And it's recorded in the Voice of San Diego podcast studio, which is sponsored by the Bob Nelson Charitable Fund. Thanks for listening. Talk to you soon.